Why is OCD so painful? It is a truly awful thing to experience when you're getting stuck in your head with these horrible thoughts and these really difficult emotions. I really wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy, but a huge part of the reason for why it is so difficult and so painful is because we are fighting with these really difficult emotions and thoughts that are coming up. You may have heard the really famous quote, "What you resist persists," by the psychologist Jung. And it really is about this kind of thing. When difficult things come up for us, whether that's emotions, thoughts, whatever it is, if we really try to fight with those things, if we try to have certainty, for example, if we try to make ourselves feel better in this moment and we just say, I'm not going to allow that anxiety at all. I do not want to feel bad today. I just want to feel good because this is going on or that's going on. Unfortunately, what we're doing is we're kind of denying reality. There's a certain reality to OCD. There's a kind of factual essence to it, which is just that in this moment, for whatever reason, you are experiencing difficult emotions. You are having intrusive thoughts. And if we try to kind of deny that, if we try to say, but that's not fair, or I don't want to have that, or I've got to get rid of that because this is happening today, or that's happening today, unfortunately, all that tends to happen is it gets kind of out of control. It gets a lot stronger. And it's really because we're not bringing compassion and acceptance to the OCD. I really wish it kind of wasn't like this, because this was something that for many, many years myself, I was completely stuck with. I would spend hours and hours each day ruminating on things, ultimately because, I was feeling anxious. I was feeling unsure and uncertain. When we feel kind of uncertain, that's very difficult. It's very uncomfortable. These are emotions that kind of make us really, really struggle. And, most people want to get rid of that. They want to do something to kind of deal with it. And if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I do now have a 12-week program to help you to break free. It includes weekly videos, worksheets, weekly coaching sessions with me, group sessions, all sorts of things. So if you're interested in applying for that, you can by heading over to my website at robertjamescoaching.com and booking in there for a free discovery call. And actually in the West, we're kind of trained to be problem solvers. Our parents or at school, we're kind of taught, that if we have a problem in any way, then we need to think about it. We need to come up with a good solution. Don't just sit there and allow that problem to fester. It's going to get worse. It's going to get out of hand. And whilst in many areas of life, that is true, that's correct. When it comes to OCD and anxiety, unfortunately, kind of bringing that kind of perspective just makes things worse, because when you problem solve all the time, a difficult emotion comes up and then you're like, right, I've got to get rid of this. I've got to find a solution to it. All you're actually doing is you're resisting the emotion and you're trying to use logic and reason to disprove it, to get rid of it. And of course you can't do that because, you're trying to use logic and reason with something that is inherently emotional. And that is always going to lead to, at kind of best, a miscommunication. And at worst, a whole lot of resistance and then more and more anxiety until you feel that, it's just very, very difficult to deal with. So, what we have to learn here is actually to feel that anxiety more. And I know on the face of it, that's quite an abstract idea. It's quite an abstract thing to do. How on earth do you go about feeling your anxiety more? And this is something that I really think is a really important part of learning to get over OCD in the long term. There's lots of skills out there that are about kind of managing OCD, managing the difficulties and, kind of learning how to kind of get through your day and to be more accepting, be more compassionate with it, to redirect your focus and all of that kind of thing. But really what we're talking about here when we start talking about feeling the emotions is a bit more to do with healing. When you can allow difficult things to come up and to spend more time with them, to make a bit more space for them, you're really not fighting with them so much anymore. You're allowing them to move a bit more. You're creating space. When we do that, well, that energy, that anxiety can begin to move a bit more in the body. It can begin to do what it needs to do. One of the problems with this kind of work, though, is that it doesn't always feel nice. I think a lot of the time, again, in the West, what we want is we want to feel good most of the time, or all the time, in fact. And there's almost this idea that, if we're not feeling good, then we're doing something inherently wrong. Whereas, actually that's not always the case. Sometimes when it comes to mental health things in particular, learning how to experience those difficult emotions is, very uncomfortable in the short term. But what it does lead to in the medium and long term is much more, resilience, much more acceptance and compassion, and a better way of being able to deal with these difficult things. It's not that the difficult emotions disappear altogether, but that you have a bit of a different relationship with them. You're much more better able and better placed to be able to allow them and to kind of grow in your life, with that discomfort there. Ultimately, if we're not resisting it all the time, that discomfort is kind of transformed. It's not as uncomfortable. You're able to deal with it. You're able to get on with your life. It isn't kind of causing you to ruminate and get lost and do compulsions all the time, because you're much more accepting of it. And I think this is some of the deeper work that we have to learn to do with OCD. But also, it's just a kind of deeper work that I think, in general is a good thing to do. I think to a certain extent, we're avoiding that because, whenever it does come up, whenever you put your finger on that discomfort and you really experience it, you really feel it in the body, there's a part of us that wants to disassociate, that wants to get away, that does not want to allow that anxiety to be. And that's completely understandable to a certain extent. This is why I think learning how to lean into that stuff in a slow and gentle and compassionate way is really, really important. But, little by little over time, as we are a bit more willing to lean in and to experience it, I think we really can begin to transform it into real growth. So many thanks. I really hope that you found that helpful. Remember, if you are interested in my program, you can sign up for a free discovery call by heading over to my website, robertjamescoaching.com. There's a link in the show notes. Many thanks, and I'll see you next time. This video is for education only. It's not therapy or medical advice. If you're struggling, please speak with a licensed mental health professional.